All right, welcome back to another episode of Balone coverage. I'm Mike Bell with my co-host Caleb Schwer. All right, Caleb, the conference championships are done. We've got a lot to get to, and I've been trying to think like, should we start with the games or should we just start with kind of the major talking points right now, and that is the playoffs, the playoff structure, seeding. I kind of say we start there and work into the games. We'll talk about whatever. Maybe we can jump around a bit. I guess initially, what are your thoughts on just the bracket that came out? Kind of what's going on in general.
Well, not to beat a dead horse, but I think it is kind of ridiculous with having James Madison in there and Tulane in there, given the amount of talent that is right there at the cusp of getting in to begin with, and then just adding, you know, two teams like that into there. It's kind of a disgrace because I don't know. It's like every year they're like, okay, yeah, we're trying to put the 12 best teams in there, but it's like this is definitely not the 12 best teams in all of college football for sure. It's kind of almost like trying to spot the little man an opportunity. And really, there was not one that deserved it this year to have a potential, spot in the playoff to go and see if they have a Cinderella story type ending. Of course, would they ever be able to really have that? Who really knows, to be honest with you? Even if like an undefeated group of five school did have an undefeated year and they looked awesome, could they truly compete and go win the national championship? Probably not. I mean, can you say never kind of thing? Probably not, but odds are very slim. So I really don't like that those two teams have gotten in, and you have teams like Notre Dame, Miami, Texas, Vanderbilt left out. I just think that's kind of a disgrace, to be honest with you. Um, and like so, for instance, like James Madison, they're playing Oregon. Do they have a shot at that? Guess there's always a chance, right? But no, not really, to be honest with you. And then same thing, really, Tulane, Ole Miss. Same thing. I mean, the spread on that is Ole Miss by 17 and a half points, man. Like really? And then Oregon by 21. Is that a playoff game to you? I don't think so. Playoff to
Right.
me is like look at the other ones. Alabama, Oklahoma, OU by 1.5. A&M and Miami. Now, honestly, man, if I were you, I would be a little scared. But we'll get to that in a moment. But A&M by 4, okay? That's that's a playoff game. I'm sorry. You know what? And I said Miami right there too, didn't I? I apologize. I was misreading something. But anyway, that's a playoff game. I just don't understand.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say this is probably the last year it's going to be in this exact format
Yeah.
because you can't have, like you're saying, JMU and Tulane in there. According to the rules, I kind of think the committee mostly got it right. Like I feel like people are being really hard on the committee. I know you're not as much on these online platforms like I am, like on Reddit, most of them talking about and Twitter, but people really giving it to the committee, I don't know. I think they're kind of in a tough spot. Like, yeah, I have minor quibbles with some of the things they did, but just according to what the rules are, it was basically they had to choose between JMU and Duke. It wasn't that they had the choice between JMU, Duke, and then Notre Dame, Texas, Vanderbilt. That wasn't really the option. The option was BYU, Miami, Vanderbilt, Texas, Notre Dame, and they went with obviously Miami. So I tell you what's really disappointing. I don't know what they're going to do to fix all this, but what's really disappointing is Notre Dame ultimately declining their bowl invite, and I,
Yes.
I
What's your thoughts on that?
it sucks, and I think they got to make a rule against it. Now I don't know
It
how you
sucks
can.
from what perspective, I guess. Like,
It sucks from a college football perspective
yes.
because look, bowl games it shouldn't just be about the playoff. I look forward to those other
Well, for
bowl games,
sure.
those other matchups. and all that. I get Notre Dame. Like, don't get me wrong. If you were a part of that team, I'm sure it would suck. Like, you were in the top 10, the whole way. Well, not the whole way,
Yeah,
but for a lot of the way. And then all of a sudden you're bounced out. And in your mind, you're probably thinking, oh, well, the committee caved in the pressure, all that. Like, that's tough. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I feel like you got to play your ball games, and
for
it's
sure.
just a tough situation. Notre Dame was in a tough spot, being that Miami is just that team right behind them, and then they lost the head to head. So I will say I think the committee ultimately got that one right. We've talked about that all year. Like, who do we think's
Mhm.
better? We both think Notre Dame's better. I think Notre Dame could have competed for it all. I really believe that. So then now to just leave them out of it to a team that I do not think can compete for it all, like, it sucks. But I do think that is the right choice. But yeah, those are just kind of my thoughts. I hate that they're not going to play in their bowl. Another team I think we got to talk about is BYU. You
Mhm.
know, they kind of entered the scenario that we talked about in the preview
Yeah.
show. Okay, they got blown out by Tech again. It's the same team. Tech looks pretty good, top four team, but now BYU's out of it completely.
Yeah, I
What
know. See, from
thoughts?
that perspective, it really sucks. Like, so here's the deal. I'm fine with BYU potentially being left out if like there's other 10-2 or like Notre Dame is in there, Texas. I mean,
Alabama.
yeah,
Well, they had two
Alabama.
losses.
Yeah, then fine. Okay, I can maybe understand why BYU didn't get in, but right now, man, like if you're BYU, you lost to the number 4 team twice, and yes, I get it wasn't a close game. But then I'm just saying, just all the teams right there on the cusp should honestly be pretty pissed off with just like, really, Tulane, really, JMU. I don't know. It's just, it sucks, man. The only thing I would say to both Miami and Notre Dame, I think they're both good. And honestly, I think both could potentially go and have they or Notre Dame, like you said, they could potentially have gone pretty deep into it. Same thing with Miami. The only thing is, with Miami, or excuse me, let me start with Notre Dame first. Okay. Notre Dame, they started out 0-2. Then they came up, I think, really, to be honest with you, the only quality win. I know they won against Pitt. I don't know how much I want to put into stock with that. The USC game, fine. I'll give them that. So they're 1-3 versus, or excuse me, they're 2-2 versus ranked opponents. Okay, that's like how much of it is okay? This team's actually good, or is it like kind of their weaker schedule making them look extremely good? So I would have been curious to see like what they could have done against some, you know, like a playoff contending team. And same thing for Miami. Frankly, Miami, they right out of the gate they came and played, you guys, and then Notre Dame.
Miami
Uh,
didn't play A&M, but
hold on. Oh, I am so sorry. I'm sorry. That's the postseason. That was the. Um, they have that up there at the top. That's very misleading. My goodness, on the schedule. So they come out right out of the gate. They go and play Notre Dame. They win. Good game. And then win at South Florida, win at Florida State, and then they
those games
won.
don't look that impressive anymore. And their losses, everything you say about Notre Dame is true, but
Yeah.
like Miami's losses have
The
not
losses are
aged.
worse. I would agree. I would argue the losses are worse for Miami. SMU, Louisville.
Yeah, right.
Um, so
So
I don't
ultimately, when
know.
it's that close like that, I do think you have to honor the head to head, because it's like it's
Well,
hard to make a
for sure,
decision. Yeah.
for sure.
So to me, it's less about Miami, Notre Dame, and it's just about what do you do with BYU and what do you do with these conference championship games? Because now, people were calling for Alabama to maybe be left out, and you can't do that in the SEC. You cannot do that. You cannot
Oh,
make your
that'd be a disgrace.
yeah, you can't make your championship game and then drop out of the playoffs, and you can't say, oh, well, the same should apply with BYU. But the problem is, now what is the incentive for the Big 12 to have a championship game? because they may be
Mhm.
saying, well, look, BYU wouldn't have moved back if we didn't play it. So it's just kind of a mess. But I
Oh,
think
for
the first
sure.
thing they could do that we agree on, I think most people agree on, is they just got to change the formatting a little bit in terms of like who just has to get in, those group of five teams and then, the highest ranked conference championship. Like maybe just choose the 12 best teams. Stop doing the conference championship stuff.
Yeah,
Give
no.
sort of,
I think, yeah, probably so. And I hate to like, we need to make something like where winning your conference is special again, to be honest with you, because or even just being in it potentially. I mean, depend. So if you're in the SEC championship and you lose, I still think that means something to an extent because the competition is so good for you to even be there. I think that's quite the accomplishment, and probably the Big Ten. So, and I think the Big 12, I just think Texas Tech is just maybe substantially a better team than what BYU is. I still think they're a good quality team. But we need something that honors the conference championships. It just feels weird, to be honest with you. Like, they just seem like they don't really matter as much, per se, other than like trying to position yourself getting the bye or not. And then, like you said, man, just if there's a Cinderella team or whatever, like let's say Tulane was undefeated, fine, whatever. Throw a one team or whatever at 12. See if they can do something. Don't waste like what is it? 12 times 8 with 96, almost 8%. A little bit, actually, a little bit more than or less than 8%. Um, is taken up by two teams that probably shouldn't be in there. So anyway, almost a tenth, almost a tenth.
yeah.
It's I don't know, man. It's yeah,
They have to figure something out. I mean, maybe this is an argument for like play-in games, and I know like you can keep just like extending how many teams are in it, but I do
yeah.
think there's some things you can do to make this a little bit cleaner. First of all, Notre Dame could join a conference, but I don't
I
think that's
know. I was going to get to that too. Yeah.
yeah, that really would clear a lot of things up. In a way, Notre Dame kind of deserves this, but
Oh,
it's
for
also
sure.
it also
I don't.
does. Go ahead.
I don't know if you saw this or not with Notre Dame, but they so their AD came out and said that the ACC had damaged the relationship,
Hmm.
and then like apparently the ACC's spokesperson or whatever like came out and like cleared the air or whatever. I didn't get to read that story or whatever, but I was like, I just don't understand how Notre Dame can be so closely affiliated with ACC, but yet not a part of them. And I don't know how much money it is, but people always bring it up every year that, when Notre Dame makes the college football playoff or, whatever, they get to take home a certain amount of more money than other teams because they have to attribute a certain amount of that to the conference. And to be honest with you, to be that big of a school and not have to do that, whereas everybody else does, how is that fair? And I don't know what other pros and cons there are to being out of your own conference, but I guess number one would be a championship. But I mean, good or bad, depending on the situation. Like this year, who knows if they actually were in a conference and they went and played a championship game and won it pretty handily, they could probably be in right now. So this year could have helped them. So I don't know. It's ridiculous though to have a powerhouse like that and not be in a conference.
Yeah, yes. I am curious to see what is going to come of this. I know the deadline, they extended the deadline for figuring out what they're going to be doing in the future in terms of the brackets and all that. They extended it, I believe, to January 23rd. Again, I don't know what the solutions are other than the group of five stuff. And, we'll see. We'll see. But
Do you think Notre Dame comes off as like some titty babies for not getting in and then canceling the bowl game?
Well, yes, but I got to tell you, even though I think the committee made the right decision, I still kind of get it with Notre Dame. I don't like them canceling the bowl game.
Yeah.
Yeah, titty babies, but you got to keep in mind they've been playing really good. I understand what you're saying about
I
the schedule, but I think
I,
they like they're one of the best teams in the country, and they're probably right. You know, so
well, for sure, for sure. But I could also make that. same argument for almost for you could sit there and look at Texas's resume and Vanderbilt's resume, and they're both 10-2, same record as Notre Dame, and a substantially harder schedule, in my opinion. But
Texas is
uh,
9-3, not 10-2.
oh, excuse me, sorry, I was thinking of Vanderbilt when I said that. But still, man, I don't
I
want to beat
get
a
it.
dead
I get it.
horse.
There's arguments for all of them, but it's
Yeah.
just like arguments and resumes aside, like there is something that feels a
Yes,
little
I
different
get
about
that. Let me ask you this, because earlier you had said something like this. Like, to be honest with you, if your team's not in the now, I didn't feel this as much when it was the 14 playoff, because I think there's like four. They're not BCS bowls anymore, but like the big one, like the Rose Bowl, the Orange
Yes,
Bowl, the
Sugar Bowl,
Fiesta Bowl, and
sugar.
yeah, Sugar Bowl. Yes. So when it
Yeah,
was just the 14 playoff, two and then one, so there was like another bowl or whatever for the next best team. I didn't feel that, or I don't feel this. I didn't feel this way then as much as I do now. Like now, I feel like if your team's not in the playoff, I do feel like the bowl is kind of like, this kind of sucks. Like you're.
yeah,
I mean, and, like, don't get me wrong. If you're an 8-4 team, you weren't going to a good bowl game to begin with. I just feel like it doesn't stink as much as it does now.
yeah. I mean, that is the thing, and it's like, what is the solution to that? Are we just entering an era where it is just all about the playoffs? Because you're right. Texas, Michigan. It like
I
is
think
that
that's a great game, by the way, but it's at the Cheese Bowl. I mean, a
yeah.
Cheez It Bowl, excuse me.
Cheez It Bowl. Yeah, I agree. I think it is a great game, but it's just like more so like
Well, yeah.
how bought in are both these squads? It
Well,
feels like
exactly.
if you're ranked from 12 to 20, those games which should be exciting and what you're looking forward to, you're worried about where and then the games beyond the top 25, those teams are just happy to be in any sort of bowl. So it's like those could be good games, but the shameful part is like those teams that are still good but didn't quite make the playoffs. It just doesn't feel as
Yeah,
good.
as much pizzazz or something. Like, I don't know how they would go about it. I don't know if they would, like, if there's a way for them to like manufacture like an elevation of a bowl, like say, hey, here's a second tier bowl, so if your team
Yeah,
makes it, it'd be great. I don't know how that works, to be honest with you. Funny thing, not to get into the Texas Michigan game too much, but I actually freaking work that day that the game is on, so I'm a little
mhm,
pissed about that. But all in all, that's I guess another aspect to it though about the bowl games, like if your team's in the playoff, obviously your star players are going to stay in and they're not going to opt out. Whereas like the other bowls, that's where you're going to have more opt outs, and that's the
right.
part that also kind of drives the sword into the wound a little bit. Like, not only did you not get the playoff, but your best players are going to opt out, or some of them will opt out, go to the draft, which potentially puts your team at a huge risk for losing, which I don't know what Texas seniors are doing. I saw, I need to go look and verify it, but I saw that Anthony Hill is opting out, or is going for the draft this next year. I don't know if he's opting out, but if he is, that's a huge loss for us on our defense. And Michael Taft, he's a senior. I think he'll play because he loves Texas, but and I know Anthony Hill does too, but that's another aspect of it. It's like it's not even really your team. It's like a shell of your team playing, which is another aspect to it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I want to say even these 5 and 7 squads because there were a couple teams that have opted out, and then the 5 and 7 squads that now would take the place of some of these bowl games, they're opting out too. Like they just, I don't know. There's less incentive to even want to play the bowl games. Like I think Florida State said no, we're not
I
playing.
don't remember last year or the year. I don't remember last year there being like. Can you think off the top of your head anybody that like opted out of the bowl game?
There were a couple, but I forget who they were.
Yeah,
So
I can't remember off the top of my head. But
yeah,
that's crazy, man. I mean, I mean, hell, if I mean, what's the whole purpose of even trying to get to 6-6? I guess if you're that I
right.
don't know.
Well, that's kind of what you're right. Right. No, I agree. I agree. Now here's the thing. I mentioned this last time, and it seems like overkill, but I'm seeing this on Reddit, and I don't know if they'll do it. And there's some. highly popular people that are against this, but the FCS right now does a 24 team playoff.
Hmm.
And it is interesting. Like, I wish we had a thing where we could pull it up to what it would actually look like, but it does a couple of things. 24 seems like a lot, but first, what it would do is the first two rounds you could play on campus, and you could still have a bye for those top teams in the 2014 playoff. And because what sucks is, let's just take a team like Ohio State. They have the bye, but they don't get to play a home game on campus. Like, that's the ultimate advantage to having a great season, is to have everybody wants that home game. So you have two rounds of home games. It values conference championships because they could structure it to where the winners of the conference championships have like the higher seeds. Again, if I had it in front of me, maybe I could make it make more sense. But
Think about it. If you guys were to win and you guys go to the Cotton Bowl, you would have a huge, huge home field advantage. Which,
yes,
to your point, honestly, would be a little unfair, or not unfair, but kind of wrong in a sense. It's like Ohio State's the better. Like, they got
yeah,
the bye, but also to an extent, they're playing an away game.
right, yeah, yeah. So I don't know. This is all going to be talked about over the coming weeks, and I'm curious to see what they do. But I think this can maybe be a good transition into maybe talking about some of the games, because we do need to value these conference championships. And let's just start with talking about Ohio State, Indiana, because Indiana, it's a great story,
Mm-hmm.
but as far as I'm concerned, when I watched the game, I mean, look, it was 1v2, and as far as I'm concerned, those are the two best teams in the country. What did
For sure.
Indiana really win? Like, what they probably won is a rematch with Ohio State
Yeah.
at the end of the year, where it's tough beating the same team twice, especially at
Especially, yes, with those, yeah, especially like you're saying, 1A and 1B, arguably.
right. So obviously for Indiana, I'm sure they're over the moon about winning the Big Ten, as they should be. It's an incredible story, but geez, like,
Hmm.
what did they really win? It's like now they're just like the top seed, and they've got to go through a tough schedule again. Like, so it's just like, again, what was the advantage necessarily to actually winning the Big Ten other than pride? Which pride could be enough. Don't get me wrong. I want these teams to have more pride in just playing those games and wanting to win them. But anyway, that's just kind of a
That's
continuation.
another talking point too, like you're saying, for real. So let's look here. Okay, so Texas Tech plays the winner of James Madison Oregon game. That's in for all probably going to be Oregon. I think that would actually be a very good matchup. Indiana faces Alabama, Oklahoma. Going to be a tough matchup.
Yep.
Georgia gets the winner of the Tulane Ole Miss game. I mean that's going to be a good game too. And then Ole Miss. It who So out of those four teams, Texas Tech, Indiana, Georgia, Ohio State, who do you think would be facing the hardest opponent? Do you think?
Ooh, I would say not Georgia, because they have. We don't know what Ole Miss is going to be.
Right.
Indiana. Who does Indiana potentially have to face?
They're going to have to play either Alabama or Oklahoma.
So then, not them. I guess it would be Texas Tech, because they're probably going to have to face Oregon, and that's a tough one.
It is. I think Ohio State is close second though between um the winner of Miami and you guys.
Yeah, I get it. I don't know. I think not to make this about A&M, but A&M really got unlucky with this bracket, because
Yeah.
now they got lucky in the sense they don't have to face Notre Dame, but Miami obviously is a very tough opponent. But then having to face Ohio State as that
Yeah.
next game, when we have an argument to be number 6 and have to get a much easier opponent than freaking Miami, it could have been JMU or Tulane. And then, that next game is tough, but geez, like Ohio State, even though Indiana just beat Ohio State, I think Ohio State's still the last team I'd want to face of those four. So anyway, I don't want to get into the whole A&M thing here, but yeah, those are like little things I don't know how to fix in terms of the
Hmm.
bracketing and all that. But and I guess every year there's going to be a little bit of variance, right? in terms of just the way certain teams are playing. Like there probably isn't just like a great fix necessarily, but
As far as that goes, I mean, you're right. It would be hard to fix.
yeah,
But
but
I mean, pretty much what you were saying beforehand about the Indiana Ohio State game. I thought that was an awesome game.
mhm.
Kudos to Indiana for what Kirk Signetti has been able to do at IU in those 2 years. I mean, seriously, it is insane. It gives you just a snapshot of what you could potentially do with the transfer portal, NIL stuff. And honestly, I guess it's just the transfer portal that, because you don't really hear about too many IU people in NIL, honestly. Obviously, they have it going, but um, transfer portal. And I mean, do you put Kirk Signetti a top five coach in the college now? I think you probably have to, just
I think you
because
have to. Yeah.
yeah, you have to, because yes, I know it might be the easiest to rebuild your team now than ever beforehand, potentially, but it's also maybe equally as hard to retain a culture and a team. Like it's a double edged sword. But not only to do like before Kirk Signetti got there, like they showed up on the screen several times. Indiana was the most losing school in history, or like college football. Period.
Yeah.
And Ohio State was the highest winning percentage football program in the country. For Kirk Signetti to accomplish what he's had there in 2 years, it's quite. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, it is crazy to think about. To be honest with you, like you can't put it into words. I mean, oh, I mean, it's an awesome story to believe it or not.
It's the greatest coaching job of all time. I think it's got to be right, and that's what other people are saying. Like I think it's got to be. They're number one in the country, and they beat. And it's not like they've done it easily necessarily. Like they
Yeah,
just beat Ohio State.
yeah,
So yeah. I mean, I think it's just. I think it's
yeah. I
amazing.
get. I'm curious to see what he does over the a couple like within a couple more years. I'm definitely like I'm just saying like okay, how do you want to value this? Because I forgot how many years it took Nick Saban to win. I don't know off the top of my head how long it took him to win at LSU and then at Alabama and whatnot. Like that's over a 20 year span. But within 2 years, and then again, the knock against Saban in that argument is, that was at LSU, Alabama, two very formidable universities. This is Iowa. I mean, Indiana.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, that's awesome.
Any more thoughts just on the game itself? I thought obviously it was a great game. I'd love to see it again. We've talked before, like, are there any weaknesses in Ohio State that Indiana could expose? And to me, the weakness that was exposed, now granted, you have to have a great defense to do this, and Indiana clearly does have a great defense. That is
Hmm.
kind of the thing with them. But the weakness, I think, is Julian San and the fact that they are very good, but maybe they're not as elite as you would think in terms of like their overall offense. Like they can be stopped. They're not going to necessarily run over you if you can play defense well. The problem's going to be Ohio State's defense is always going to have them in the game. But the weakness could be their offense. They're not fully ready yet, but who
Right.
knows? This loss maybe be expose something in a good way for Ohio State, and they could say, okay, this is what we need to fix. So, yeah, any thoughts on that?
I mean, not really. I think it was, we're able to kind of say this now just because they played against, really, I think all across the board, Ohio State is number one on a lot of categories defensively and probably offensively. And same thing goes for Indiana, oddly enough. So I think Indiana may be one of the only teams to really and truly expose Ohio State's defenses. We'll kind of see. Maybe I think maybe the other defense that really could maybe push Ohio State like that is potentially Georgia's defense. I guess maybe also Oregon's to an extent, but I'll put Georgia's first behind Indiana's just because of the way Kirby Smart is and just how hot Georgia is right now. But Julian's saying it's his first year, and what's the most important spot or position in football, quarterback. It's his first year. He's got tremendous talent all over the field. And by the way, the true freshman running back for Ohio State, he's over 1,000 yards. He's in there with Travion Henderson. Uh, oh goodness, there's like only 5 running backs in Ohio State's history that were true freshmen and ran for 1,000 yards. I'm actually kind of surprised by that. I figured it'd be like way more, but anyway, they do have a good running game. They have stars all over the field. It was surprising to me that Indiana was able to, control that as long as they were. Um, we'll see. We'll see. But let me see what Indiana. I don't even think. Yeah, Indiana wouldn't even have to play. I guess the real question is Alabama's offense. I don't think could maintain Indiana if they were to win against Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma could maybe have a better shot. But here's the deal: Oklahoma doesn't have the firepower on offense to get past Indiana,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, you know, the last 2 games, Alabama's offense has looked out of sync. We chalked it up as the
Alabama's got
Auburn.
issues.
Do it? Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We chalked up the Auburn game as like rivalry game, and like, listen, there's something to that. Auburn's defense is really good, but then in like Georgia's defense has looked really good since that loss to them, like in the regular season, and they keep getting better and better each week. So I'm not trying to like dismiss what Georgia's been able to accomplish, but Alabama has. We've both been very high on them, and just to come out in the SEC championship like that and come out as flat as they did, I was kind of surprised by that.
Yeah.
I really was. I guess perfect segue into the Alabama and the Georgia championship, the SEC championship. What were your thoughts on that game? Did you? I expected Georgia to win. I expected it to be a closer game though, because keep in mind this was a 24-21 victory for Alabama during the regular season.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think, and we've talked about it all year, and you're kind of seeing it catch up with them. But I don't know what they finished with, but I know in the fourth quarter, I saw the stat -2 rushing yards for Alabama. Give Georgia credit for that, but you gotta say,
It's been an issue
that's
all
on
year
Alabama.
for Alabama.
That's on
Yeah,
Alabama. You have to be able to do multiple things on offense, and I think it finally has caught up with them. And that's why I think, like, in terms of the playoffs, can they beat OU? Of course they can beat OU. But, like, do I see them going much further than that? I don't. They've just got
it's
issues.
very interesting matchups. I think it's kind of the opposites. But OU really good defense, kind of iffy on offense. Alabama's just kind of just above iffy on both, in my opinion. Like, Alabama's got some good defensive players. They have a good quarterback, really good wide receiver. Everywhere else kind of iffy. So it's a good. I think it's going to be an interesting game, but
They
in
seem
reality,
kind of
can
capped out,
yeah,
Alabama. You
yeah,
know, like there's just this next gear they can't get to that
yeah.
they have to get to
Well, it's
if they're.
because the running game, and I've been saying it for the last couple weeks. In these playoff games, you have got to have the ability to run the ball, wear down the defense, run out clock if necessary. And if all you can do is pass, like, it's either you're going to be able to run up the score pretty well or try to get, or if it's a close game at the end of the game, you're going to potentially give the other team time back on the clock to go back and score, Whereas if you could run the ball effectively, you could run the clock out much more. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, well, it was surprising to see either way Georgia kind of run away with it the way they did.
Yes.
I mean, 14-point game. It felt like actually the gap was larger than that, but Alabama was like kind of like flirting with hanging in their second half,
Mhm.
but then just couldn't do anything. I mean, just it's repeating ourselves when it comes to Kirby Smart, but one of the best coaching staffs in the country. What they're always able to do, that is what I will say is why they are always going to be in it to win it all. because their coaching staff versus any coaching staff on any given day is going to have their team in position to win, no matter who the opponent is. So I am curious to see Georgia how they're going to be in these big games that they face. It looks like they will probably face Ole Miss again, and we'll just see what Ole Miss is going to be. But I will be excited to see kind of who Georgia faces maybe in that next round and see how they do. But
Yeah.
credit to them. They had to kind of climb back after that Alabama loss early in the
Yep.
season, and they've done it. They've been
Yeah.
elite. They've been elite.
Honestly, like we've spoken very highly on Indiana and Ohio State, rightfully so. But I think you've also got to put Georgia in that mix too. Of like, okay,
Yeah.
uh, and let me look on here real quick at this because I'm trying to figure out like which of those two teams would have to play.
I believe
Ohio
Georgia has.
State, yeah. Well, okay. Ohio State would potentially have to play Georgia
Oh
uh,
yeah.
if they both won. If
Well, that's
Georgia,
probably the matchup. Let's face it. So
yeah,
that's going to be a great game. That would be
I
a
think
great.
so.
Yeah.
And for all intents and purposes, now I think it's going to be a little bit harder to predict who Indiana would play. Um,
Indiana would
but
have Oregon on the other side, right?
yeah, they would have Oregon and Texas
Or Tech.
Tech, but I think that would actually be a pretty decent game, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think that one is going to be harder to predict. If I had to choose, sure, maybe Oregon, just because, like, but
We've seen them versus good competition.
yeah, I do think that that would be a good game.
I tell you what, and maybe this is how we can talk. We started this, but moving into now maybe Texas Tech BYU. Is Texas Tech being overlooked? Because, and this is what's going
Another
to
Big
piss
12.
off BYU fans, because if Texas Tech goes and makes a run, they're going to say, look, we should have been, because Tech
Yeah,
is just one of the best teams in the country. I think Tech, I mean, they've been blowing people out on the
yeah,
second part of the season, kind of in the same way we've been talking about Notre Dame. I mean, Texas Tech, you could say, has maybe had an easier schedule than Notre Dame. They've just taken care of business. I don't know. I mean, that's debatable. But the thing is, Texas Tech's defense. Who were you talking about? Oh, you left out Texas Tech and teams that could maybe face like Ohio State the best. But there's a chance Texas Tech could be one of those teams too, because their defense, it's just unknown. We're gonna have to see how they are versus whoever they face. But I think there's a chance like they're legit. They are truly like a top five team in the country. I think that's an exciting matchup if they face Oregon. But how far can a team like that go? I don't know, but do I think there's a big difference between Texas Tech and Oregon right now? I really don't. I think in many ways they're the
yeah,
same team.
right. I think it's pretty competitive, to be
Experience.
honest.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I mean that's kind of Texas Tech in general slash Texas Tech BYU. But I guess my only thoughts. I think we've already kind of told what our thoughts are on that game, but it's just their defense that I'm most impressed with. Texas Tech's defense, like Jacob Rodriguez is his
Turnovers
name.
all the time.
Yeah, it really is like credit to what's the guy's name? Jacob McGuire, not Jacob McGuire.
Jacob Martinez.
Martinez. Yeah.
But also you have David Bailey too, which is I think for a while he was leading the nation in sacks, if I'm not mistaken. But Jacob Martinez, I believe, is actually I don't know if he's like if he's truly on the Heisman list or not. Like he's going to go to New York, but he is like a I think he is a top 10 for a Heisman watch list or whatever. So that's not easy to do for a linebacker or a defensive player, I should say. Um,
Well,
they got
listen.
players. They got players on both sides for sure.
Yeah, yeah. On that note, it's a bit of a change of discussion here, but we can maybe have it quickly. It was just literally announced. Fernando Mendoza, Diego Pavia, Jeremiah Love, and Julian San are the finalists for the Heisman. What are your thoughts on that?
Really no problems to be honest with you. Man, I
I'd be
think you have to
surprised
go
if
Fernando Mendoza, right?
I think so. I
I
think
feel
so.
bad though, like saying that for Diego Pavia. I mean, but dang. So my heart's torn between Jeremiah Love, Diego Pavia, and Fernando Mendoza. I would
I
say this, okay. So look at the competition kind of thing. I don't know. Jeremiah Love has just been fantastic. Fernando Mendoza just knocking off Ohio State. And honestly, that clutch third down play, that was
he's
like to I forgot the name of the wide receiver, but he was number 80. Like that was a clutch moment. That was a Heisman moment in my opinion. Um Diego Pavia, we've both been very high on him this year, and rightfully so. He's been awesome, and he was the single heartbeat of that team. Don't get me wrong, Vanderbilt is a much better team than they have been than they were last year. But he has like willed them to win several times and almost potentially knocked Texas off too. I would say single handedly. So that's interesting. But I'm willing to bet that they go with Fernando Mendoza.
probably Diego Pavia has elevated his team the most.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Love is probably the best player, and then Fernando Mendoza is the best quarterback on what is the best team right now. So that's the problem. It's like, what do you believe the Heisman should be? I tell you what, I'm still going to go Jeremiah Love. I just think the dude's crazy. I do,
Oh,
but
I think he's crazy insane. I'll I'll pull his stats up just for reference. Well, let me
while you're
see.
doing that, obviously they all have merit.
Yeah, well, of course. Some years it's harder though, and this might be a year where it is
I
kind
think this
of
is a
like
harder
there's an
year. I mean, there's no obvious number one.
right.
I
That's what I
think
was gonna say.
Mendoza.
Yeah, so he's got 1,300, almost 1,400 rushing yards, 18 touchdowns, and is averaging 6.9 yards a carry. Very good.
Yeah. No, it's like one of those things. The stats don't even do him justice. Because remember, who was the guy last year? Why don't I remember his name?
Ashton
Genty. Yeah,
Gentry.
he had all the incredible stats. Granted, against even weaker competition than maybe Notre Dame had, but
Well,
you
for
had to
sure.
watch him. You had to watch him to say, okay, this dude's different. But Jeremiah Love has done it against pretty good competition. So I mean, he is. Yeah, he'd be my pick, but I'm probably not going to
I don't
win
know
that one.
how many I don't know Ashton Gentry's
I
stats
think
off the top of my head.
2000.
I mean, 18 touchdowns is extremely hard to get.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
it
that's
is.
extremely I mean, maybe like in the Sun Belt or like a group of five school, like maybe you could do that if you got a stud player. But my goodness, Power Four school. Anyway,
Right. Uh, you know,
um, go ahead.
next thing that comes to mind quickly for me, and this is back to our original discussion in terms of the brackets and all that, but I did watch on Friday, Troy versus James Madison. I also watched North Texas Tulane. Tulane, fine, they're going to get in, or maybe they even deserve to be in. That's a different conversation. I'll be interested to see them. I have to tell you, and I want to root for James Madison because it's the underdog story, all that. I want to
But
root
they
for them.
barely beat Troy, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, the final score is 31-14, but I
Oh,
watched
okay,
this
my bad.
game. Yeah, but I watched this game, and it was 17-3. I'm sorry, not 17-3. It was 17-14 going
Right.
into.
Okay, I thought I saw the.
And I want to
Um,
say Troy had a backup quarterback. So it's like I give James Madison a ton of credit. I think they are a good team for like the Sun Belt group of five. But
well, with them being like within their first 5 years of being in Division One football too, so
yeah,
there
yeah,
is
like they
credit to
deserve a
what they're
ton of credit.
accomplishing.
Their
Yeah.
one loss, by the way, and this is relevant. They faced Louisville, who's a
Yeah.
middling team in the ACC, got blown out.
Yeah.
So
Right.
to take away from the fact they had an amazing season, but you think now they're going to go beat Oregon? you know,
Yeah. Right. I know.
Beat
I
Oregon.
know. There's no logic in that.
Right, right. So just repeating ourselves a bit, but they got to change that. And it does suck that first week of the playoffs. Friday, you've got Alabama, Oklahoma. Okay, so that's the only game. And then the only game, I mean, I'll watch them. Of course, it's the playoffs, but like the game everyone's going to want to see is A&M Miami. That's the 11 o'clock game. The
Hmm.
other two are just kind of foregone conclusions, so that's kind of a shame. So just one more reason to kind of clean that up.
Well, I would maybe say I think it's maybe some of the luster is lost because the next game they would play is Indiana, which you could say, oh well, that's foregone conclusion. But is Alabama Oklahoma? I do think that will be an interesting game, but they go and play
Oh no, I
Indiana.
agree. Yeah, I think
But
maybe a little lesser loss too. Like I feel like that could be a bad game to watch.
oh, for sure, which is sad to say, but
Yeah.
yes, you're exactly right. Why is the Oklahoma fine? Can I see that being a 7 o'clock game? Fine, I'll be fine with that. But the James Madison Oregon game, 6:30. That's December 20th. Let me look. Yes, 6:30. You've got to be kidding me. Okay, Alabama Oklahoma 7 o'clock at the 19th. Tulane Ole Miss 2:30 on the 20th. Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous to be honest. Why the hell? That's ridiculous. I guess give me your thoughts on Miami A&M.
Well, again, I'm happy that it's not Notre Dame, but look, you have to respect Miami. But let's face it, they've kind of fallen off over the second half of the season. Now the thing is, A&M, it's not like they're, in my opinion, a juggernaut of a team. They're favored by 4. I think that's right. They should be favored by about that much at Kyle Field, first ever playoff game. It sucks it's not at night, but whatever. Do you trust Carson Beck in a playoff game in that kind of atmosphere? No. Do I really trust anything with A&M? No. But
Well, I would mainly say just Marcel Reed, to be honest
right,
with you. I wouldn't necessarily
that's
say
you're right.
A&M, but I guess an interesting question from that standpoint is who would you trust more in that circumstance? Carson Beck or Marcel Reed?
I would trust Marcel Reed. I
Really? Okay, that's
understand.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. But it's not even a Marcel Reed thing. It's just I don't think much of Carson Beck, and at least what's his name? Marcel Reed can move the ball with his legs a bit.
That's true.
I just
However, Carson Beck does have some experience in the playoffs and maybe these moments more so than Marcel Reed, but that's really the only thing.
I get it.
Who has what'd you say?
I get it.
Yeah, but who A&M has more weapons offensively for sure, and defense you could arguably say is better for
So that's
sure.
the thing with this game. To me, Miami does have a very good defense.
But
You
how many
know,
offenses do they play that really press the? I mean, Duke. Like I know that sounds
look,
weird, but
I
Duke.
know it was week 1, but Notre Dame is one of the best offenses in the country, and they really held them pretty good. They held them to 24 points, and they scored most of those late. Now, you could say it was week 1.
Right,
Notre
I was
Dame
going to
didn't
say
figure it
week
out.
one. Don't want to necessarily say it a fluke week or whatever, but if you got players, you can scheme up and whatever
Miami is just a very inconsistent team. They've
they
shown
are.
they can lose any game, but here's the deal:
If they
they've
put it
got
together, they could be very dangerous. Like
right.
if they put
Yeah,
it together for however for a month, which is
yeah.
possible, man, they could go win the championship potentially.
And you do have to look now. You also have to look at the competition, but over the
Yeah,
last month,
for sure.
they blew out Syracuse 38-10, blew out North Carolina State 41-7. Then they have to go on the road, which is kind of like the big test for them, at Virginia Tech. They did not look good in that game, 34-17. But then at Pitt to end the year, blew them out when they needed it most. Just saying that out loud makes me think, oh, yeah, I remember watching those games and not being impressed by Miami. So
You're right. How much stock do you put Pitt in? I mean, how much stock do you? I know Pitt's
I
ranked or
mean,
whatever. They're 8-4 in the ACC. It's like
yeah.
everybody's 8-4 in the ACC at best.
And that Florida State game looks worse now.
Yes,
So I mean,
I'm
that's why ultimately, like, I feel decent about it as an A&M fan, but you just never know. Like,
well for sure.
uh,
And I think Kyle Field, it being played at Kyle Field would be one thing too to kind of definitely help. um,
yeah.
Home field advantage will be big for this. I think.
Quickly, on
Or excuse me. Well, wait. Is this? Hold on. Is this? Is that at Kyle Field? I guess it is at
yeah,
Kyle
of
Field. The
course,
next game is at the Cotton Bowl. Okay.
yeah, yeah. But quickly, you were asking about Carson Beck, Marcel Reed, and I
Hmm.
get the comparison. But keep in mind, Marcel Reed in the SEC, Carson Beck in the ACC, as you were saying, they both have 25 touchdowns. They both have 10 interceptions. They both have right at 3,000 yards. So now,
I'm actually
I get.
surprised Marcel Reed has that many interceptions, but
Look, he can throw them in bunches. Now, I think he threw like five of them literally in the last two games he played. So
two against us, and then
three against South Carolina.
oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Was South Carolina the game y'all played before us?
no, it was Samford, but that was like an FCS school, so
Okay,
I'm not
yeah,
really
yeah, okay,
counting.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Marcel Reed has better weapons, but I mean, look, barely. I mean, they've got that Tony guy who is one of
True
the best
freshman,
receivers.
yeah. True
So
freshman phenom, yeah.
yeah, but I guess I don't want to go too down a path of the A&M game. We'll talk about that plenty, but
Hmm.
okay. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I mean, we probably do have some things if you want, but just we could talk about brackets.
So, to be honest with you, man, something I've been really excited about. So, and this guy is an under the radar like Jim, just because he's been up for so many head coaching jobs and he's always declined and
Oh
stayed at
yes,
Iowa State.
yes,
But
yep,
Matt Campbell going to Penn State, dude, they they lucked out. Like
they did.
you didn't really experience him because you guys had left the Big 12, I think, by the time he got the head coaching job. I forgot how long I forgot what year he came there. It was either 2009, 2000, between 2009 and probably 2011. He I can't tell you like what he did like in can I speak to it as much as what an Iowa State fan could? No. But he made Iowa State relevant pretty much every year, did such a great job with that university, honestly. And it really speaks something to when the AD of Iowa State is like emotional during the presser saying his goodbye and saying like, "Man, thank you so much for what you've done." How many coaches get that treatment? Not very many. Do you think Lane Kiffin's getting that right now from Ole Miss? No.
Not at all.
I'm playing, but two different story or situations for sure. But Penn State, man, they have like I know it didn't look pretty at the beginning because like Lane Kiffin's not obviously he was never entertaining that, but um, all these like big head coaches, you're like thinking, okay, who is Penn State going to get? And then they all get hired, and then out of nowhere, Penn State hires Matt Campbell. What a gem, dude! What a gem! I'm
You
excited
could
to see.
argue that should have been like one of their top three choices to begin with.
Oh, for sure. Now, don't get me wrong; it's a hard spot, but I mean, between Auburn, it probably is an easier job. Florida, maybe that's an argument too. But yeah,
Yeah,
top three job for sure.
it is going to be interesting to see what he does because something else we need to talk about is, Penn State, they only had two recruits in their class. Like they're ranked number like 130 in the rankings. I don't know if you saw that. They literally have two people in their recruiting class. That's it. So
I did not see that, but it doesn't surprise me. He's going to have to get busy in the transfer portal.
he is, but he's the guy maybe to do that because he's been working with less his entire career.
Oh, for
And
sure. You could
he,
argue he's been the best coach operating with like the less is more. I
yeah,
mean, he's been operating that its entire like. Think about it. Like for him to be able to compete with, I know the Big 12. You could argue is it strong now, but back when Oklahoma and Texas were still in there, he was still pretty competitive with them for the most part. Honestly, like they had a couple years where what maybe three losses, two losses, and I even want to say maybe a year or two ago they only had one loss, if I'm not mistaken. So with what was that guy's name, Kason Becht or something? I don't know, but anyway, I mean that Penn State got an awesome hire for Penn State. Honestly,
they did. They did. Okay. Well, got anything else? I think we kind of covered it just quickly, completely unrelated to college football, but it just came across my phone. Philip Rivers is trying out for the Colts quarterback position,
are
which
you
is kind of,
serious?
yeah, he's 44. Apparently, they're going to work him out. But
Good God Almighty!
I think that's kind of funny.
But honestly, that does suck though for uh my
Daniel
goodness,
Jones.
Daniel Jones. Yeah,
Yeah,
it sucks for Daniel Jones for him to like really like lead the Colts the way he has, and then for him to get hurt like that. It kind of does suck for sure. But
indeed.
anyway, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, but I'm glad we did do this like over the weekend because it was like every hour there was something interesting coming out, and I was like, dang, well, if we had done it this early, who knows what we would have missed.
Agreed. Agreed. Okay, well, I think that pretty much wraps us up. And I think we're going to be back next week to preview the playoff games and maybe whatever other bowl games specifically we want to talk about. And yeah, A&M will be enjoying a playoff game, and you guys will be enjoying the Cheez It Bowl. So I think that's a great way to end it. And I'll talk to
We
you
still
next
won our
week.
game, the matchup.
All right, goodbye.